If I was a plant scientist, here are the different characteristics I would look for to determine if it was a plant. First and foremost, chlorophyll. If the plant has green leaves, then it has chlorophyll and chloroplasts, which means it photosynthesizes and is an autotroph. Plants are autotrophs. An autotroph is an organism that uses sunlight to convert its own food energy. And plants use photosynthesis to convert sunlight energy into chemical energy so they get their food. Plants also use starch as food storage. It is different than other organisms. Other organisms like animals and fungi don't do that. Plant cells also have a cellulose plant wall, which really helps when you're under a microscope and you're looking at two cells. One doesn't have a plant wall and one does have a cell wall, and you know that the plant cell has that cell wall rather than the animal cell. The cell wall also helps with structural support. And if you're looking under a microscope, if this plant cell or the cell with the plant wall has a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles and a cell wall, then you know that it's a plant cell. So if an organism or a cell has those characteristics, then I would confidently say that it's a plant. On to our second question, which is how plants evolved 4.6 million years ago. Initially, Earth had no plants. The only oxygen or photosynthetic producers were cyanobacteria. Land plants evolved from green algae, and they all shared traits like chlorophyll, cellulose plant walls, as well as starch storage. The land back then, 4.6 million years ago, was a big challenge because the water was just losing or like evaporating, so they wanted to prevent the water loss. Plant groups back then started with the bryophytes, which includes our mosses, our liverworts. These were non-vascular. They required water for transportation. And then onto our seedless vascular plants, which is like our ferns. These had vascular tissue and they still required water for reproduction. Next are our conifers, which are our gymnosperms. These are seeds but no flowers. And they pollinate via wind, so the wind will carry the germinated seed over to do their thing. And then last is our angiosperms, which are our flowering plants. So flowers and fruits. This is the most diverse plant group because there's just so many different kinds. And each of these land groups, or each of these different groups, represents adaptations that they had to develop themselves to improve their survival and reproduction on land. And last is our third question. What are uses of plants and how did we use them back then and now? So back then, humans would use plants, humans and animals really, would use plants for food. They could use them for shelter, make some clothing, as well as herbal medicine. There's a lot of different plant types back then and now that can be used for herbal remedies. As time went on, so did the revolution of agriculture. People were making big fields of crops like corn and wheat and just agriculturing all of those to get a bigger yield. This helped to create a stable food supply for many citizens and civilizations. And this goes into our modern uses of plants now. Again, we still can use them for herbal remedies as well as food. We can use tree bark for construction materials, which we need for building. We can still use them for clothes and textiles like cotton. Trees are very beneficial for oxygen production, so having trees all around us is very great for our atmosphere. Overall, plants have really used to be big survival tools back then, and they have developed to be very essential in our modern day civilization now, whether that's in the health industry or even like the nutrition industry. They're really good for a lot of different benefits. Overall, plants are defined by a large set of characteristics, and they have evolved through a lot of adaptations to life on land and continue to keep developing as technology gets better and better. They really play a critical role in human survival and just human advancement overall. And understanding this plant biology is very essential to understanding life on Earth as a whole because a lot of things depend on plants.